And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That is right, it is time for Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both YouTube channels at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon as we get ready to dive into what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some snippets from the news, have a little bit of discussion, and so on. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in thus far, because I do, of course, try to read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for those of you who are listening and not able to see. And I see so far Helter is here. Unknown is here. Says they're early for once. Yeah, you got to get ahead of it because you're probably not going to get the notification. Dragon is here. Brian is here. Rodney is here, all the way from New Zealand. That's right. And you, for those of you who can see, there is Daniel in the background keeping me company. I also have Uncle sitting on the floor back here, keeping me company, and Granny Smith is in the doorway. You can't see her, though, but I see her peeking at me. Sven is here from Michigan, and Dilo is here thus far, joining us here today. And guess what? You're all still alive. That's right. You survived. You survived the eclipse. The eclipse. Oh, God, there's going to be a solar eclipse and the devil comet at the same time. Will we live? Apparently we will, because we're all still here. Nothing happened. Nothing happened again, which is why I did the video on that. There was so much speculation about the solar eclipse, and it's like, give me a break. Give me a break, people. Have you not learned by now? Haven't you? Shame on you. And Unknown is in Southeast Florida. Boogers is here. Says, been away, had phone issues. I see. Well, glad you could make it. Glad you could make it today. Everybody who is able to join us as we get ready to jump into the news. As I was just saying, yeah, we lived through. That should be on a t-shirt. I survived the solar eclipse apocalypse. I survived the solar eclipse apocalypse. I made it. I made it through. That's what happened. As we shift around here, we're going to go ahead. This is top news. A CNN article. So you know it's reliable. Yeah, really. Clown News Network is what they're typically called. But this is something you can find anywhere. Most of these articles that I pull up in this format, you can find the story anywhere because they're all talking about the same thing. If it works. It looks like duh. Unfortunately. Yeah, not the best sign there. Because I'm pretty sure I clicked to do this screen share. And it is dragging. I hope I haven't totally lost you all. Don't know if I should keep talking or not. Restream dragging its ass. Thanks for getting around to it there, guys. And I see Paul Burke has made it here today. Although no one else can see it because of the delays. Come on, Restream. Give me a break. Again, Paul joining us here today. Here we go. All right. This is, of course, a CNN article. Jane Crumbly, parents of the Michigan school shooter sentenced to 10 to 15 for manslaughter. For manslaughter. And there is a lot to say about this. And Brian says, what a pair of turds. Oh, I'm sorry, not Brian, Sven. Sven said, what a pair of turds. On a happy note, the governor demands your children earlier be sent to indoctrination centers or kindergarten. Wow, it is lagging. I apologize. That's restreamed for you, unfortunately. If I get this to work right. And yeah, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating to deal with some of these streaming services. And again, I am hardlined. I am hardlined in. And Urban is here. Says, checking in quickly to say hi. I'll have this chat up in the background. Okay. So here's what's going on. It says the parents of the teenager who killed 4 students in 2021 school shooting in Oxford, Michigan, were each sentenced Tuesday to 10 to 15 years in prison, weeks after being convicted of manslaughter. James and Jennifer Crumbly, who each had faced up to 15 years in prison, have already been imprisoned for over 2 years since their arrest in a Detroit warehouse days after the shooting. Though they were tried separately, their sentencing took place together in an Oakland County courtroom. They are the first parents to be held criminally responsible for a mass school shooting committed by their child, as the nation continues to grapple with the scourge of gunfire on campuses and mass shootings, something we never saw when we were kids. This is a modern social problem that the media, the government, public schools, all these entities are responsible for. Never mind the parents, but I'm going to get further into that in a minute. Before imposing her sentence, Oakland County Circuit Court Judge Cheryl Matthews said the convictions were not about poor parenting. They're not. Okay. These convictions confirm repeated acts of lacks of acts that could have halted an oncoming runaway train, about repeatedly ignoring things that make a reasonable person feel the hair on the back of their neck stand up. Opportunity knocked over and over again, louder and louder, and was ignored. No one answered, and these 2 people should have and sure didn't. So basically, they're accusing the parents of going to read what the people said to, because these are all quotes from things that people, so-called victims, said to these parents in the courtroom. I hate that. I hate that. Okay, and I'll explain that in a minute too. Pet peeve of mine: people reading their last words in court. Now, you're saying it's not a parenting issue, but then you're convicting them of manslaughter for missing possible warning signs that you could also argue that the school should have noticed. They spend more time in the public school than they probably did in the presence of their parents. You've got people in public school trained to watch for this and didn't see it and did nothing. Are we going to convict the school counselor, the school social worker, the vice principal of manslaughter? Do you understand what manslaughter is? Manslaughter is the involuntary killing of another person. You and dude got into a fight and you hit him and knocked him out, and he fell and he hit his head on a rock and died. Manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter. You didn't mean to kill him. These people didn't do anything that could realistically draw a manslaughter charge, I don't think, based on what technically manslaughter is. It doesn't make sense. Plus, they've already been sitting in jail for more than 2 years before even getting this far. So much for your right to a speedy trial. But don't ever expect that in court. That's long gone. That constitutional right's been walked all over decades ago. The thing I was talking about with people's quotes in court, where they get up there and they got their letter and it's like, you people have ruined my life. You took my son from me, blah, blah, blah. I've seen way too many instances where people sit up there and they read their little piece of paper, and it turns out later on that person was innocent. You rub salt in the wound of the fact that they're going to jail for something they didn't do with that whole process. I hate that. Plus, the only reason it's allowed to be done in court is to give the families the illusion of justice, because this isn't justice anyways. It's not. It's not justice, but it helps to perpetrate that illusion of justice. So, I mean, I fail to understand exactly what it is that links them to manslaughter, that puts them in jail for 10 to 15 years each. It says down here, that they felt that they were guilty based on the fact that they seemed to without much emotion. And that's jury bullshit. I've been on jury duty before. I'll tell you right now, if they acted emotional, people would say they were faking it. So you can't do right in these circumstances. You really can't. Rodney says they advise that all they can do is homeschool their children, keep them away from the far leftist indoctrination. Yeah, keep your kids. You already know how I feel about that. Keep your kids the hell away from public school if you can, in any country. Sven said we did firearm safety in school and Boy Scouts. Now we can't figure where to pee. No kidding. And Unknown says, notice these kinds of trials don't happen for the families of underage gangbangers. Yeah, and that's also, it sets a precedence. If you're going to hold these two responsible for manslaughter, what's next? Because the judge said herself, oh, this isn't about bad parenting. Well, what the hell is it about then? It's not about bad parenting. What the hell are we doing here? If you can prove that they did bad parenting, I don't know, negligence that led to a criminal act, maybe, at which point they would have already served their time. You're going to put them in jail for 10 to 15 years, and you really don't have anything to charge them with, because manslaughter, it doesn't make sense for what's going on here. Oh, there were warning signs. Well, like I said, yeah, if there was warning signs that they ignored, there were warning signs that were ignored by the public school system as well. Where's the counselor? Where's the homeroom teacher? Where's the school social worker? Isn't that their job? God knows they get paid enough. And I see Fluke Man has joined us here today. Let me close that because it's just really interfering with the, at least on my end, I'm having a hard time with the restream today. I see Fluke Man is here, as well as Monkey, and Raccoon Eyes has joined us here today. So again, that's my question, is like, what is this set possibly a precedence for? How much are you going to be held accountable for as a parent? Because there are a lot of bad parents. I'll be the first one to admit that. I've seen way too many of them. In my personal opinion, most parents are bad. They don't do the job right. They don't do the job at all. They don't really care. It's all an act. It's all about how it looks. Oh, I love my kids. You don't even know your kids. But there are good parents out there, as well as good parents that still end up with rotten kids. There's something about that kid. They never get their minds right. They never get their minds right. And they do terrible and stupid things. Can you still hold those parents accountable? This swings open the gates for a huge mess if this sticks. But regardless of whether it sticks or not, and it gets thrown out possibly in appeal, these two have already spent more than 2 years in prison. I think they've been in prison 27 months. Is that correct? 27 months in prison, just waiting to get through the trial. And that's why I say so much for your right to a speedy trial. The other big lie in there is being held accountable by a jury of your peers. Are these people their peers? When I was on jury duty, was I really the peers of whoever was the defendant? Are these people really in your wheelhouse? Think about it like this, just as an example. If you had a person that was a doctor that was on trial for malpractice, if the people in the jury are not in the medical field in some regard, they're not his peers. But they'll judge him, and probably wrongly, probably sitting there assuming, who gives a shit? The insurance company's going to pay for it, and screw this guy over and ruin his life, and could be completely wrong. They sure as hell won't understand any of the medical jargon that's brought up by the witnesses. Certainly not. Paul says they'll jail MAGA people, and they're going to jail their family and friends as well. Yeah, no kidding. Get those brown shirts out and get your armbands. Unknown says when your kid is around garbage people Monday through Friday every week, your good influence is far less effective. Very good point. Which is, again, why I always advocate, please, if you are able to, if you have a child or children, consider the homeschooling. Many people won't do that because they've been bamboozled by these modern social norms of, you don't need to be married, you don't need to have a spouse at all. You know, I don't need no man, because mostly it's women that'll have the single child and blow the relationship. They don't care. Single parent household. I don't need a man, because, the ideal nuclear family, somebody works, somebody stays home and nurtures the children. That worked really well for a very long time. And now it doesn't. You could still get bad apples out of that, but for the most part, it worked really well for a lot of people, for a lot of families. But that's completely destroyed now. And even when you have a two-parent household, they expect everybody to work. Oh, we need to work so we can do this and that and this and that. And half the stuff that you're paying for, you don't need. Buying things you don't need, paying for things you don't need, getting debt that you don't need. And Monkey says this opens the door for the ATF police to come and confiscate the weapons from the parents due to the kid lighting up the school. Yeah. Rodney says uneven application of the law, aka lawfare, is being used against anyone who right of center that the Democrats don't like. And Urban says, speaking of bad parents, there's currently a trial happening about the Apple River stabbing from 2 years ago, where a group of 13 kids attacked a middle-aged man and got the shock of their lives. Wow. I don't know if I heard that. Fluke Man says, you just described a dad I once knew. At least I thought I knew. He's gone now. Think it's better for the family. The son certainly does. Daughter says it's easier without him. Interesting. Well, talking about parents who pretend and they don't really care. I think that's most parents. They had a kid. I mean, if we're being honest, most children are accidents. You weren't expecting it. There's very few people that are like, hey, let's have a baby. Okay. That's usually not the case. And even with birth control or whatever, things happen. I got a kid that way. I don't hold it against him. It's a conversation I've had with him. It's like, yeah, you weren't expected, but that doesn't mean you're not wanted, is my approach to that, which he understands. Yeah, things happen. Be careful. But most of the time, a lot of parents, especially in the modern era, that's very me-centric. It's all about me, very selfish, very arrogant. That child is a burden. That child is keeping you from doing the things that you deserve to be able to do. And truth be told, you probably wouldn't do a damn thing anyways. You probably still wouldn't be doing that shit, whether you had the kid or not. Raccoon says child support is the new employment. I've met a few girls who had a kid on purpose just to collect support and not work. Youch. Doesn't surprise me at all. Sit back and collect a check. Everybody wants a damn check. Where's my check? Where the hell's my check? I want a check. Everybody gets a check but me. Something must be wrong with my white privilege card. I need to get it renewed. That must be the problem. As we shift around here, and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is a big part of that problem. It's infected the schools, the jobs, everything. But it's nice when you can get confirmation. It's nice when you can get confirmation, and here it comes. And this is from the Daily Mail, I believe, is this article. A former executive from NPR, National Public Radio, which used to be reliable and is no longer. No longer reliable. National, you can't. And hopefully, all right, because I'm frozen a little bit here. Everything okay? I got a yellow warning. That means that there's a connectivity issue. I got a connectivity issue. Everybody see me okay? Hear me okay? Let me weak. As I wait for this to do right. I see Carrick has joined us here today. Glad you could make it. Glad you could make it, Carrick. And then New York confirms that it got choppy there for a second. And it looks like it still is. And again here, see where I am hard, though there's no excuse for it. And when that happens, I'm quite sure if I should keep going or what. Because that gets scary. You're like, oh, am I still on? What? What the hell am I? What the hell am I paying for when that happens? Here we go. Hopefully that's worked itself out here. Because I'm still not. It looks. I just want to make sure. Good experience for everybody. So NPR radio, Daily Mail article, NPR journalist blows whistle on network's obsession with DEI. And again, that's nothing that we did not already know, but it's nice to get confirmation. Reading into the article, a veteran NPR editor has blown the whistle on how the publicly funded broadcaster has become an activist organization obsessed with pushing progressive ideas. Yuri Berliner, a business editor at NPR for 25 years, has offered a glimpse into his belief that NPR has gone from a respected information source to one that can't be trusted to honestly cover the news. In an essay for the Free Press, Berliner notes that while NPR has always had a liberal bent, the publication was not knee-jerk activists or scolding, something he said changed when Trump entered the political arena. Berliner uncovers how NPR knowingly kept information from its audience during 2016 and 2020 presidential elections. He says NPR editors were quick to jump on claims that Trump was a Russian asset, but far more reticent to cover the subsequent debunking. It was a similar story with the C virus lab leak theory, which NPR continues to discredit, as well as the Hunter Biden laptop, which bosses declined to cover, Berliner says. Today, those who listen to NPR or read its coverage online find something different, the distilled worldview of a very small segment of the U.S. population. And like I said, this is nothing that we didn't already know about NPR. We know NPR is just a sickeningly woke, drippingly, disgustingly woke. But it's nice to see confirmation. Let me close that, see if that helps a little bit. It's nice to see confirmation coming from Berliner, who was an executive there for 25 years, confirming, yeah, NPR radio, you can't trust them. You can't trust them anymore. It was already kind of left it anyways. Now it's so bad that you can't rely on anything that they say. They're extremely one-sided. They omit things that are very important, and they're very reluctant to admit when they've said or done something wrong. Fluke Man says, do you think it's true American families gone downhill since the government gave free money to single mothers, encouraging I don't need no man? Yeah, they've done a lot of damage with all of that. And part of it with the housing projects also, there were housing projects in the United States that were specifically for single mothers, and they were very inexpensive. And a lot of families separated on purpose or pretended to be separated so that they could get the really cheap housing. And the fathers, the men, would sneak into the complex. And so the government, agencies of the government had to try to crack down on that, because that's not what those housing projects were for. And a lot of people blame the government for setting up something like that in the first place. But on the other end of that, these people did not have to divorce or pretend to be separated or pretend like they didn't know where daddy was to get into those apartments in the first place to save a few dollars. They were dishonest on purpose so that they could get a little bit better of a break on housing, and created a really nasty situation. And it just gets worse and worse. Unknown says they can see and hear. And 115, it confirms there's been a little bit of choppiness. Yeah, it's been a couple of times. It got weird on me here. Again, I try to give the best presentation that I can. It's unfortunate that we have to put up with this. And you pay for the service too, because the restream, we had to pay for that. And it's not, I'm not getting paid for doing this stuff, so it's kind of frustrating. And Unknown says a woman that they knew got pregnant, had 3 guys conned into buying her diapers and such for a few months until they met each other and went teen paternity test. Wow, that's terrible. Fluke Man says probably YouTube trying to shut you up and try to make it look like you're an internet service provider. I'm just joking. I'm sure it's paranoid, but I believe it. Hey, you never know. You never know. And David Jones is here. And Dragon says NPR is tone deaf to serious issues. Yeah, and they used to be very reliable to a point. Now it's just forget it. It's a joke. Helter says NPR is just so thoroughly committed to examining absolutely every story through a radical lens, it makes the network utterly useless as a news source. But like I said, it's nice to actually see confirmation. We already knew this. We already knew NPR was unreliable, that they were like milk-soppingly, disgustingly dripping wet, as it were. But now, like I said, with that article and Berliner confirming it. Yeah, you can't, coming out of there and whistleblowing on the operation, you cannot trust them. It's nice to see that. And Heidi is here. Thanks for joining us today, Heidi. We're trying. And again, I'm hard lined in. I'm not using Wi-Fi or anything like that. So there's no reason why I should be having so much trouble. I don't use wireless. I don't use the Bluetooth. I'm connected directly to the internet. Now that one rolled up better. That worked better. Another Daily Mail article. And more confirmation. Federal Health Agency slammed for its $241 million tax-funded DEI scheme. A federal government health agency is under fire for its $241 million taxpayer-funded scheme to promote scientists from minority backgrounds who tick the DEI checklists rather than best candidates. Conservatives are taking aim at the National Institute's, get a load of this name, the National Institute of Health's Faculty Institutional Recruitment for Sustainable Transformation Scheme, or FIRST, which pays universities to hire biomedical researchers in a drive for inclusive excellence. Unbelievable. The right-leaning National Association of Scholars accuses the NIH of putting an ideological agenda ahead of quality research, and the transparency watchdog Open the Books calls it a waste of taxpayers' money. Well, most of what taxpayer money goes to seems like a waste, quite frankly. The NIH did not answer DailyMail.com's request for comment, I bet. The case spotlights diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to get more underrepresented talent, such as women and minorities, into desirable jobs, which critics say hurts the chances of straight white men. In particular, it focuses on the controversial DEI statements that have become obligatory for recruitment at many liberal universities, which conservative academics decry as an ideological litmus test. According to Open the Books, the first scheme is expected to cost $241 million over the next 9 years. It has sent grants to 16 colleges since 2021. Its most recent round of funding of 4 awards totaled $64 million. 4 awards, $64 million. Recent recipients include the University of South Carolina, which received $13 million, University of New Mexico, $15.6 million, Northwestern University, $16 million. The group said in a report on Tuesday, Florida State University, Cornell University, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and Tuskegee University have also benefited from this scheme. So there you go. Once again, let's just hire, or we're going to pay you to hire unqualified people if they check the boxes. And it's not even an issue of the possibility that it might hurt, quote, straight white men. I think it said straight white men, correct? That's not even the point. You're hurting qualified individuals, people who are qualified for the job, so that you can create an unrealistic balance. One of the arguments that I'll always make is they complain that there's less than 15% of, for example, Black people working behind the scenes in Hollywood, key grips and camera operators and things like that. Less than 15%. It's not fair. Yet Black people in the United States only make up 12% of the population. So that's about right. That about balances out. But I guess somehow it's supposed to be half. And that's just not realistic. It's just not realistic. And that's what this hurts, because you're going to shoehorn unqualified people into positions, some of them which require a high level of skill, and put people in the jobs who can't do them properly, that could cause problems, could overlook things, could cause damage, could cost someone their lives, depending upon what they're doing. It's just not right. If those people were good at it and reliable, they could get the job without DEI inclusion. And companies and schools, colleges and universities should not be getting paid tax dollars to encourage that sort of a thing. And then again, these titles drive me nuts. Let me read that title again. Some of these organizations, the titles that they come up with. What is this again? The National Institutes of Health's Faculty Institutional Recruitment for Sustainable Transformation Scheme. Who comes up with these names? Unknown says they caught NPR lying by omission a few times prior to 2010. It made me wonder just how long and often they'd done so. Too long and too often. Rodney says mentioned the new term for DEI. Checking on a private tab confirms YouTube deleted my comment. I see. YouTube pulled a comment down on you. Urban says DEI scientists will work out just as well as DEI pilots. And Booger says next piece of pork spending in the study of how to catch unicorn farts in mason jars. Well, you're going to have to ask Kim Jong-un how to do that, because according to him, the mythical unicorn was actually indigenous to North Korea. No joke. New York said ScrewTube deletes my comments often. Wow, still? And oh, okay, your side conversation there. Yeah, they do. They police the comments a lot, unfortunately. Chris says diversity hiring worked for Boeing, and hat privilege sub that implored and was using a game console controller to drive it. Implored or imploded? Unknown said my county sheriff is a shoehorn hire. He's now trying to not only keep his job but stay out of jail. And Flukeman says all the wokeness is totally first world problems. You wouldn't encounter anyone with these ideologies in the third world. They can't afford to deal with it. They can't afford to deal with it in the third world. They can't put up with all of that. They don't have time for it. They don't have time for it. We're the ones with all the free time and all the money, apparently. All the money to waste on it. To sit there and pretend instead of realizing what the truth is right in front of us. Let's pretend all the time. Let's pretend like we don't know the difference between a male and a female. You got to have a bachelor's degree in biology, apparently, to know what that is. Let's just pretend. Rodney says bridge is the new term for DEI. And Fluke Man said run, feds at the door. No, it was just a telephone. And Urban says those will be the scientists placed in positions of policy and health regulatory agencies to approve Bill Gates' veggie patty fake health food industry, which produces questionable food products. It won't be veggie patties. It'll be cricket patties. Bill Gates wants you to eat roaches. Roaches and caterpillars and grubs. Hakuna Matata. Now, jumping around here, we're going to jump to Chicago and learn how to take a bad problem and make it worse. How do you make it worse? How do you take a bad problem and make it? Be talking about Henyard. I don't know why. I'm waiting for Restream to catch up here because it's choking. Here we go. So there's Henyard. And oh, look, Lori Lightfoot. Henyard has become such a problem as, quote, America's worst mayor. We've got to go and get Lori Lightfoot and hire her back to solve the problem. Because Lord knows she did such a great job when she was mayor. No, Lightfoot is not going to become the mayor. Mayor Beetlejuice is retired from being a mayor, but apparently she's qualified to be a special investigator. Fox News article to investigate the so-called worst mayor in America. 400 Illinois voted Monday to hire former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot as a, quote, special investigator to look into Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. There's your problem right there. They voted for this person in the first place, all right? The people in Dalton hired Henyard in the first place, a diversity hire that has destroyed their town. And then they want to hire another failure to investigate her, and they voted on this too. Starting Tuesday, Lightfoot will be paid $400 per hour to gather information on Henyard's alleged spending and finance mismanagement, as well as any state and federal violations. Ahead of Monday's vote, Lightfoot said she understood the residents want to go in a different direction from Henyard and promised to follow the facts where they lead. Lord knows she is so incredibly reliable. So reliable. At the end of Lightfoot will present a report to the village of Dalton on her findings. The findings in the report will determine what happens beyond that. Trustees also re-voted on issues that Dalton mayor has previously vetoed and about paying vendors and invoices that have not yet been paid by the village. Monday's vote was held off-site at the Park District building since it wasn't an official village board meeting. It was also moved there to accommodate residents who wanted to attend. The Village of Dalton, Illinois' monthly town hall meeting once again made headlines last week for fiery confrontations with the scandal-ridden mayor. Henyard has been accused of misdeeds ranging from weaponizing police in retaliatory business raids to spending taxpayer money on luxuries like traveling to Las Vegas. Last month, Henyard reportedly vetoed the board's resolution to probe her spending over proposed misuse of funds. What's the point of taking a vote to investigate the mayor if the mayor can veto it? Why do you even have a board if the board has no power? Just asking. While the FBI has allegedly already begun to investigate Henyard for purportedly misusing her local police force, the board's resolution has called for the FBI to do further investigation into her spending of the town's money. And that adds up quick. That adds up quick when you're talking about that Lori Lightfoot apparently is going to be paid $4 per hour. Consider that she's probably going to put in an average of about 10 hours a day. Doing what? That's $4,000 a day if she works 10 hours. $4,000 a day. Think about that. That's $20,000 a week. There are people who don't make that much in a year in this country. I just want to point that out. Hey, I'll investigate her for $400 an hour. You already know she's guilty. She doesn't need to be investigated. She took that trip to Vegas. That is confirmed. She has not been paying the vendors. That is confirmed. Whenever you try to investigate her, she vetoes your vote to investigate, which is ridiculous that she even has the authority to do that, which means she has something to hide. She's already under investigation by the FBI. So you already know that whatever it is, there's illegal things going on behind closed doors. And you're going to pay this woman damn near $20,000 a week, roughly speaking, to tell you what you already know, and then what? Get vetoed again? How's that going to work out? How's that going to work? Let me catch up a couple of comments here if I can. Maybe it should work a little better if I close that out. Again, unfortunately, Helter predicts that Lori will find no corruption. Follows investigation with trip to Vegas with Tiffany, followed by an investigation by Biden administration, followed by a trip to Vegas. Yeah, there you go. Dragon says this is like asking Hannibal Lecter to help catch Buffalo Bill. And like Hannibal, she'll use all the commotion around this to escape the law and have her old friend Pritzker for dinner. And Booger says, watch Beetlejuice investigation last 2 years and find no wrongdoing. How much would she make in 2 years at $400 an hour? Remember, it's $20,000 a week, 52 weeks in a year. I would say minus a week or two for vacation, but, she'll probably get that paid. And Unknown said, Lightfoot knows things. That job is hush money. You think so? You think so? Incredible. Incredible. The corruption is incredible. The corruption is incredible. And then they say, that they can't even do anything with her. That is Henyard, or Henyard, however it's pronounced, because she'll just veto it. We vote to investigate you. No, I veto that. Get out. Plays the race card in a room full of black people, because pretty much the whole rest of the council is black. I think actually everyone on the council is black. Oh, y'all black, you should know better. Trying to tear a sister down. Quoting, I'm not just being smart, or a smart ass, as the case may be. She speaks like this. I'm sure many of you have heard her. I've played clips from her on the broadcast. She sounds all trashy and ghetto. She really does. It's awful. I'm like, who voted for this woman? Why did you vote for her? Another diversity hire. Oh, look, we've got a female mayor. She's black and she's female. Aren't we diverse? Yeah, how'd that work out for you? You can't find a woman who is actually going to do the job? I'm sure there's some out there. Just saying. Fluke Man says Lightfoot just says she's a victim of sexism and racism. Yeah, that must be it. Lightfoot too. Especially with Lightfoot being of a diverse sexual nature as well. I do believe she is a lesbian, correct? But, the corruption doesn't stop there. And this is a Telegraph article I wanted to pull up, if it'll let me, because it's acted. This is kind of important, and I'll explain why. Telegraph article talking about the BLM. Nothing surprising here, because I keep seeing stories like this. We've read a few of them. BLM activist jailed over fundraiser fraud, ordered to repay £1. That's right, £1, because again, this is in the UK. £1, about $1.25 $1.26, something like that, right? If you're talking US currency. Here she is, Zahara Salim with her wig and her 2-inch long eyelashes. I hate that look. I hate that look. All that foundation, too. You can see she's wearing a lot of makeup. But that's another problem altogether. I'll get to the article. A Black Lives Matter activist who helped organize the protest that led to the toppling of Edward Colson's statue has been ordered to repay just £1, despite defrauding a charity of tens of thousands of dollars. Zahara Salim was jailed for 2.5 years last year after pleading guilty to one count of fraud after a £32,000 in charity donation went missing. Another charge was left to lie on file by the CPS, and now for the first time police have put the total amount of money she is believed to have taken and spent, which is around £70,000. Police have now obtained a confiscation order under the Proceeds of Crime Act against Salim, but because the 23-year-old spent all the money she stole in less than a year on Ubers, beauty treatments, clothes, takeaway food deliveries, and phones, police have had to obtain the order with a nominal $1 or £1 rather sum, which then allows the amount to increase if or when Salim ever has money again in the future. The money was pledged by people across the world in a series of online fundraisers that were set up by Salim, who was then called Yvonne Manaya, both before and after the Black Lives Matter march in Bristol in 2020. But instead of going to the good causes people donated towards, I don't know if BLM really counts as a good cause, but we'll just keep going here. She frittered the money away. There's a really British term for you. She frittered the money away in less than a year on a wide range of expenses and living costs, living a comfortable life of shopping, beauty treatments, taxis, and food deliveries. Salim pleaded guilty to one charge of fraud last year, and the court heard that around £32,000 went missing from the first online fundraiser that she had set up. So is she still in jail or not? It doesn't say. I know she was arrested, but I don't know if she's in jail right now. In the face that she's only charged with a single pound, with the option of being able to increase that if and when she ever has money again, but who cares? She stole £70,000 from the organization, but big deal. You know, and again, I don't regard BLM as being a legitimate charity. I don't regard the BLM as being a legitimate charity at all. So screw them. But also, this is, again, not the first time I've seen this. We've seen several articles about BLM fundraisers, people that are in charge of money, activists at the upper echelon of the BLM ripping off funds. It's happened again and again and again. Think about the organization that you're involved with. Anybody out there, whoever stumbles across this podcast, involved with the BLM, who thinks they're right, ask yourselves why it is the people in charge keep stealing the funds. There was that one woman, we read the article a little while ago, I forget, she owns a house here in Georgia, who had been misappropriating funds or accused of misappropriating funds. I don't know what happened with that case, because she was using the money to buy properties. She has a house in Georgia. She has a house in the Bahamas, a house in California, I think, and was trying to purchase property in Florida with BLM funds. And she was a bigwig with the BLM. And again, you trust these people? You want to be part of this organization. You think they're trustworthy. You believe in their cause. You're donating to this so that the people that are in charge can steal. Brilliant. And Urban had to run. Glad you could make it today, Urban. Dragon says take 70,000 pounds in order to pay back a £1. Who said crime doesn't pay? No kidding. And Helta says the judge has literally demonstrated that crime does indeed pay very, very well. What a credit to the nation. And she squandered it. She squandered it too. On herself. Me. The me generation is what they ought to call these people. The selfish generation squandered the money on restaurants and clothes and hair and nail appointments and fancy telephones or cell phones. Do they even make telephones anymore? But more to the point, my wife, again, she works for the city, has seen the house because she had to do a safety inspection in that neighborhood, and she sends me an image. She's like, "Isn't this the house from that BLM woman who stole the money?" And it was, and it has an airstrip behind it. There's it's the house, big patch of land, an airstrip, and a hangar. And all the houses in that neighborhood are like that. They all have like their own little private airstrips in back of the houses. The nice big houses, not mansions necessarily, but nice big houses, big properties, lots of airplane hangars in the area. Everybody's got a little private plane. And I'm like, wow, it must be nice to be a BLM organizer and be able to cash in on that. So if things ever jump off, she can go and get in her little plane and fly to her house in the Bahamas, also paid for by the so-called BLM charity, unbeknownst to them. And the question I had for her at that time, I was like, since you're in that neighborhood, what's the demographic of that neighborhood as you're, driving around, walking around through there? It's a white neighborhood. So you're a BLM, Black Lives Matter. No Caspers here. Screw whitey. White people are the downfall of society. They oppress us. But I'm going to steal money from my so-called black charity and buy a house in a rich white neighborhood. Oh, the hypocrisy of it all. It's sweet. It's like pineapple. Raccoon says, I think they all steal. You don't see commercials for Wounded Warriors anymore. Those people were caught stealing. Okay. Fluke Man says, other than the $1 or £1 fine, what she's done is a blessing in disguise. At least the donators know what they're really like. Do they, or are they going to keep making donations? Because that so-called charity rakes it in. And Heidi reminds people, thumbs up. Yes, if you don't mind, please do, thumbs up. And Unknown says, so she lives like John Travolta. He has a house on an airstrip in Florida. Yeah, basically. It's everybody in that neighborhood has their own private landing and a hangar in the property behind the home. And the house is spaced out pretty good. And like I said, it's apparently a wealthy, primarily Caucasian neighborhood. But, I thought you had a problem with white people. BLM, fight the man. But, out there in the street, when the people who donate to the charity can see it. But I want to live in that neighborhood. I don't mind living next door to them. I just want to be able to protest them and set fire to cars and collect all those big charitable donations. Thank you so much. I'm in the wrong line of work. I should be a crook. I'd be rolling in it if I was dishonest. Goodness. But I wanted to highlight that because you see that all the time. These people are all thieves. It's insane. How do they get away with it? How do they get away with it? But with that, I got to go ahead and wrap things up. Oh, look at Uncle. You comfortable? For those of you who can see, there's Uncle spread out on the floor. Hey, buddy. Uncle. Uncle's asleep. He's ignoring me. He looks ridiculous. I will remind everybody, of course, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Naturally, I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us here today. Sorry it got a little choppy a couple of times there. Maybe it's the weather. It is raining out here pretty good. But again, thanks for joining us. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will do this again